So over the years, I've been really enjoying using my prime lenses when shooting portraits and street photography. And probably one of my favorite lenses would be my Nikon 85mm 1.8. Great lens, I use it all the time in my professional and personal work. So when the good people at TTArtisan reached out and asked if I wanted to check out their 75mm f2 newly released lens, I was quite interested to see how it would stack up, not only with my Nikon 85mm 1.8, but also with the 7Artisan lens that I just released a video for, which is also an 85mm 1.8. Now I should note, right at the start here, the price point for this TTArtisan 75mm f2 is considerably lower than, again, my Nikon lens and the 7Artisan lens that I reviewed recently. So we're looking at a much cheaper lens to start off with, but hopefully it works out fine and is not a burden to my photography or to how I want to shoot videos and photos for portraits and street photography. And just a little bit of housekeeping as well. Although TTArtisan was nice enough to send me the lens, I am not obligated to have this video checked by them. I'm not being paid monetarily wise by them in any way, and I'm free to do what I want in this video. So yeah, let's just jump right into it. So this is the actual lens that TTArtisan has sent me. First time, you pick it up, it seems quite nice. Decent build to it. I'm not sure if this is plastic or metal, but again, this is an under $200 USD lens, so not expecting the highest quality, but from what I see, it seems quite nice and is good enough for sure. It doesn't feel cheap in my hands or overly plasticky or anything like that, and it has a decent weight to it, which is nice. Hopefully it means it has some nice glass in there. Now, like all lenses, obviously it has the focus ring on it. It moves quite smoothly, quite nice. It's not overly stiff or overly loose. It seems like it's a nice balance for anybody who likes to shoot manual focus. And you can see here that the aperture ring is actually located on the lens this time as well. This time it is a clicking aperture ring. You can hear that. Although I would prefer not to have the aperture ring on the lens itself. I like to control the aperture through my camera. But if you're gonna put it on the lens, at least make it a clicking one, so I do get that feedback, that haptic feedback that I've changed the aperture. I don't like it when they just slide, because you never know really what the aperture it's gonna be on unless you're looking at the controls on your viewfinder and stuff like that. So this is better. I find it nicer, and I find this actually makes it a little bit more difficult for the aperture to change on its own when you're in the field, which is always going to happen with these kind of lenses. You never know when you're brushing up on your own body or something else. There's a good chance it's going to change. This one does not have any kind of a locking mechanism on the aperture ring, so yeah, there's a good chance it'll change, but there's a less of a chance with this clicking one than if it was a sliding one. So that's great. And also something interesting and kind of unique with this lens, it does have a USB-C port on the lens, but it's actually on this lens cap here on the back side of the lens cap, which is kind of interesting. I've honestly never seen that before. This will be good for using firmware updates for the lens in the future. It will be interesting to see if they do any kind of firmware updates, what they can do, how they can improve a lens like this with just purely firmware updates. But maybe as Nikon updates the camera, updates the autofocus abilities of their Z line, then they're able to upload a firmware update to this lens to kind of run along with it side by side. That'd be cool. I haven't seen anything yet, but it is interesting. I will note though that if you do lose this, you can't just get like a Z style back mount that will replace it, because it won't have this USB-C mount. So you'll have to get the specific USB-C mount of this kind of cap if you ever do lose it, which could be a bit of a pain, because I end up, switching those to different lenses. None of the lenses I have actually have this cap that came with the lens. They're probably all switched up. So it could be a bit of a pain if you do end up losing it. Hopefully it's not too expensive to replace. But yeah, that's it for the lens, basically. Very, very simple. I actually kind of prefer a simple design for my lenses, because I don't really want to be overly confused with buttons and things like that, having to program everything like that. I just like it to focus and work. So yeah, that's that. It's not bad. It's got a bit of decent weight to it. Here's my Nikon Z85. I'd say it's a little bit lighter. Nothing really, really noticeable, but if you do hold it in your hands and think about it for a second, it does feel a little bit lighter. It is f2 compared to f1.8, so there's a bit of a size difference here, a little bit smaller. So if you're into compact lenses, if you're into things that are smaller, maybe you got a little bit of space issues in your bags, this will save you a few millimeters and a few grams here and there. Not a big deal for me, but that's important for some people. So yeah, it's a little bit lighter, a little bit smaller, very, very simple lens. But it is simple always best. how does this stack up to other lenses that I have when out in the field actually using it? So me and my friend B-Boy Isakai, we went out to a new area that's just been opened up behind Shibuya Station. I kind of just randomly came upon it when I was leaving the station one day. So we decided to go there and check it out and do a little photo shoot. Now, one of the most interesting selling points of this lens, just like the 7Artisan lens I reviewed recently, is that this lens, even though it's under $200, does work with the Nikon Z systems, autofocus, eye detect, face detect, and all that kind of stuff. It actually works with this system, which is really, really cool and something I'm kind of surprised of, and I didn't really think it would work all that well. But when we were out shooting, you can see all the portraits, things like that we took, it was able to catch his eye and catch his face and autofocus on it really quickly with no issues at all. I never had a problem like, okay, is it gonna focus? Why is it doing this? Like, is it back focusing or is it searching? It never really had a problem. It just worked, which was really impressive actually. I'm not sure if it's fast enough to autofocus for things like skateboarding or any kind of action shooting. I haven't had a chance to test that. But as far as like portraits and street photography and any kind of slow moving things, it worked great. And even when we did some freezes with B-Boy Isakai, it was able to pick up his face real quick, fast enough that I could get the freezes and had no problems there. And even for some video, I did some walking video with him. It stayed on him pretty well. When we were doing a quick move here, it stayed with them and I got the video all the way through, all the autofocus right there. So it worked great, no issues, nothing where I wanted to like rip the lens off my camera and throw it away or anything like that. It just followed his face, stayed on autofocus, and it seems to have worked quite well. So I'm really happy with that. Anything that makes shooting more simple, anything that makes shooting easier, I'm all for it. And for under $200, it could work with the Z system of autofocus really well. You know, that's nice for beginner photographers, and that's a really great option to have. Now, as far as overall image quality with this lens, I did personally kind of looking at it while I was editing that, I kind of did find it a little bit soft for my taste when compared to say like the 85mm 1.8 for the Nikon and things like that, other lenses I've used. It does just instinctively feel a little soft. Not a bad thing, not like unusable at all. The images look fine. I think you can see on the screen here that I'm showing you, the images all turned out quite nice. A little bit editing, a little bit of sharpness or clarity or things like that can really pop that back in. And this is just my own personal opinion when looking at the images I took. It does feel a little bit soft. Like I'm talking like 5% soft or like, 6% softer than maybe the Nikon lens or the other lenses that I've used. So it's not a big issue. It's just, it does feel a little bit soft. But saying that, I did do a side-by-side comparison with my 85mm 1.8 for the Nikon. And again, like with the 7Artisan lens, looking at the images side-by-side on my computer, I mean, like, I can't tell a difference. Like, they look very, very similar in the elements that we had at the time with a bit of cloudy weather and things like that. So maybe if you used the lens in a different situation, there would be a bit more of a standout difference. But what I was able to get that day, I really couldn't tell. Like, is this shot with the Nikon? Or is this shot with the Nikon? Is this shot with the TTArtisan lens? Or is this shot with a TTArtisan lens? Can you honestly tell me, just by looking here on the screen, which image was shot with which lens? I really don't think you can, but feel free to give me a comment and tell me the points you noticed in the images, but I'm not a pixel peeper kind of photographer. I just go for like the overall feeling of a shot and the emotion and things like that, the moment. So it's not a really big issue for me at all with the images we got. And the same goes for the video. Video seems quite nice. We didn't have the best lighting in some of these locations, so it's not going to look amazing and super cinematic or anything like that. But overall, it's definitely video that I could use when shooting. And if you're starting out in photography and videography and you want something that is like 1.8 or like this is an f2, which is still very, very wide open. 1 second.
A few moments later.
You gotta hate when the doorbell rings when you're shooting videos for YouTube in your home apartment. So yeah. Anyways, but where were we? And overall, I think, if you're looking for a lens that is a nice open lens, depth of field that's not too expensive, you want to experiment with some video at f2 and things like that, this could be a good option for beginner filmers out there who just want to play with this and can't really spend a whole lot of money. Of course, I would recommend picking up the lenses from Nikon and things like that if you can afford it. Not all of us are professional photographers, and many of us are just starting out. So at this price point, I really do think there's a lot of good things you could do with this lens, even with video. But I think it's going to get images and video that is very usable and something that creative people can really, really bite into and have fun using. if they're on a budget. Yeah, so overall, how did I enjoy using the lens? It was fine. It's a lens, very simple. Autofocus works great with the Z Mount. It worked great with the auto ifocus. Video was fine. Image quality is fine. It's not the most amazing lens out there, but at the price point, under $200, like I've said probably 5 or 6 times, it is quite amazing what they've been able to do here. I mean, like auto ifocus and things like that really, really help when you're shooting. Auto ifocus for video really, really helps when you're trying to take images of people moving around, you're moving around your subject and things like that. Like I said, anybody starting out, this could be a really, really good option. Like I said in my 7-Artisan video though, one thing you do have to be aware of with these kind of third-party lenses is if it breaks and you do want to fix it, there'll be a lot more hurdles to go through. You might have to send it in the mail and things like that, overseas even, than if you were to be using, say, like a Nikon or another lens of companies of that stature. My Nikon lens breaks, I can walk down to Shinjuku Service Center, give it to them, they'll fix it, and I'll get it back I'm much more at ease when I do that than sending things in the mail. So yes, it's very, very cheap. Seems to work fine as well. It's not, it's not the best lens in the world, but it'll work fine for the price range. But if it does break, there are some issues and hurdles that you'll have to go through when compared to other lenses. And eventually, yeah, you probably will grow out of this. So if you do have the budget, starting with the better lens might be the better option. But I know for a lot of people out there, like $200 is not just, $200, whatever. Yeah, you just go pick it up and throw it in the trash when you're done with it for a day. $200 is $200. So picking up this lens could be still expensive for some people, but I think in the long run, it'd be good. You'll enjoy using it, and the images and the videos that you get out of it will be pretty good quality. And I think if you have a bit of creativity, you'll be no problem. Because in the end, they say gear matters, and yes, gear matters, but gear doesn't matter. You'll get great images with this and great videos with this as well. It's a real simple review, and I hope this helps. If you have any questions or comments about the lens or about the video, hit me up down below. Hope this helps. Cheers. Thanks, guys.